Well, thank you for joining us again. It's still business and economy, and joins us to talk about the business of government in government now is Samson Davies, the managing director of Forbes Integrated Company Limited. Thank you for finding time to join us on the program.
Thank you.
Maybe we should start like this, Samson. What is the business of government, and what should the government be doing in an economy like this, with population of 160 or 70?
Thank you for inviting me. A couple of us cannot seem to understand where we seem to be confused, as a government on how to manage the potentials that Nigeria has to offer Africa and the world at large. We seem to be so confused. We seem to be fixated on tax. We seem to be fixated on how much can we get from entrepreneurs. The government really does not seem to understand. Should we, also partake in the business of, of building the economy? Or what exactly should we do? Should we actually regulate, or should we divest? Should we invest? There's been a lot of, policy somersaults in Nigeria, where a particular government comes and the focus is privatization. And then the other government comes and feels, no, you can't, sell out our national assets. We need to be in business, However, we may not need to say emphatically government should not be in business or government should be in business. But we can take a global example of what's happening globally. How was America built? How did the Lee Kuan Yew build Singapore? How did the Al Maktoum? How did they build the Dubai? The states in the United Arab Emirates. How did they make it happen? What exactly did they do? Learning from their experiences, learning from what they did, we can actually leverage on that. Because there's really no need for us to reinvent the wheel. We just need to look at how has this guys been able to do it. That would take me to how was America built. Let's just take a perfect example from that.
All right.
Entrepreneurs built America, not the government. There were about 5 guys that sat up to say, we're going to take advantage of the American situation. There was a guy called John Rockefeller who felt we can't all go into darkness after the whole day. Once it's 6 p.m., people go to sleep in America in those days. People like John Rockefeller was the one that came up with the idea of refining kerosene to create a lamp. Whereby, rather than people go to sleep, people queue up at John Rockefeller's refineries there, to buy kerosene to light up. And then what happened? Before you know what was happening, there were different people that were creating refineries, refining oil, refining crude. And that created jobs, that created employment for people. Then, came the guy called Henry Ford. Henry Ford looked at it like, car cannot be the luxury for the rich. It can't just be something that can only be, acceptable for the rich alone. Some other people, some young folks should also be able to do it. The guy came up with a car of less than $1,000, the Model A.
All right.
Of course, it wasn't given the backing of the competitors at that time, but these were the guys, that started the pioneering of, okay, let's build something on our own. Government was only regulating. Government was living on tax.
Okay.
But not this kind of environment where we make it look so funny and then create some kind of disinterest. The state government wants to earn from you. The federal government wants to earn from you. The local government wants to earn from you. And then some sub-agencies that are created by the states also wants to earn from you. At the end of the day, it doesn't look enticing to anybody. You talk to foreign investors, they laugh at you. I'll give you a perfect example of Nigeria. I'm quite sure if there was no Wale Babalakin with the boycotting idea, there wouldn't be anything called MMA2 today.
Okay.
We would still be stuck with...
That's an idea of one man, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
We will still be stuck with the General Aviation Terminal, where Harry presently runs from. But with the Babalakin in the system, who had an agreement, with I think the Yar'Adua government then, under a 12-year plan for a build, operate, and transfer, he had the opportunity, to build something. And then on a yearly basis, he does like a review with the government of the day. We can do a lot of that. If you look at the Lekki Ikoyi Bridge, Kennedy did that in the U.S. Back then in the U.S., Kennedy is one of the 5 men that built America. I had spoken about John Rockefeller, I had spoken about Henry Ford, then there was, Andrew Carnegie. Carnegie worked with Tom Scott, in those days. And then they had a vision that if you are to travel from the eastern part of the United States to the western part, you have to go by sea. So it was not something convenient for a lot of people. Kanege did exactly what we have in Lekki Ikoyi Bridge today.
Okay. Okay. Let me just quickly take it more further and look at how do you think the business or how do you think the government and the entrepreneurs that you talk about would develop the nations of America, create a functional structure in order to create a level playing field, and a win-win situation, both for the government and for the entrepreneurs?
It's quite simple. All the government needs to do is not to task everybody to the teeth to build roads, to build rails, to get water. Government can focus on some very basic things like security. Government can lease out some of these things on a PPP, public partnership, just like they have done for the MME2 model. They can do the same for Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. They can do the same for whatever road you are talking about, and the person is going to tax. It's going to toll those roads.
So what you're saying is that the government has no business in handling most of these, will I say, projects on its own.
It's going to end the way we have seen. We've been talking about corruption in Nigeria because any kobo that comes out of government is either a compensation or it's either like I'm sure you know what is called IOUs.
Of course.
In corporate business. We have political IOUs. And the only people that are beneficiaries of government contracts are people that have funded campaigns, that have donated political IOUs. So you expect them, when you give them a billionaire contract or thereabout, they want to execute it with 200K, 200 million, the naira or dollars, whatever the standard is, so they could recoup whatever they've invested in the campaign period. The solution right now, as we speak, we don't need to continue to paint those railroads or paint those coaches. We don't need that. We have tallies in in Europe. You have Eurostar all over there. As a matter of fact, I was in Amsterdam and I took the train, Thalys train from Amsterdam to Paris.
Okay.
AC, Wi-Fi. You just need to experience it. We can do this. We can invite Thalys to Nigeria. We can commission from Ido to Songwater to Thalys. We can commission from Songwater to maybe Kano to Eurostar.
In terms of figure, how much do you think these would take the government to provide all of these facilities for businesses to thrive, especially for the private sector?
God bless you. Government needs not spend a dime. We just need a government that decides to say, you know what, I don't want to engage myself in building roads. I don't want to engage myself in building rail tracks. I don't want to engage myself in coming up with the entire Nigerian 2015 budget is about $22 billion US. If you calculate by 4.3 trillion, it's about $22 billion US.
Okay.
Now, if you look at the way those budgets were spelled out, in Nigeria, you would marvel that a lot of those money were actually either going into salaries for civil servants or either they are going into some very fictitious payments. And at the end of the day, you wonder what's going on. Are we going to get anywhere? On a yearly basis, we've either expended 4.3 or 5 trillion, on one project or the other. And a lot of these monies are always purified. So the way out is simple. We need not create some kind of ambiguity around it. Let's give Julius Berger the Lagos-Ibadan Express Road. You don't need to give them a dime. You don't need a dime. Tell Julius Berger to tow that road. They will tow.
So how would Julius Berger make their own money out of that contract if you say you do not need to give Julius Berger any time to do that?
It's simple. The Lekki Expressway is a perfect example. As we speak, there are tolling services going on that bridge. The Lekki Ikoyi Bridge is another example. Those guys told there's a way they collect money. There's a way they recoup their investment. If it's going to be for 10 years, it's going to be for 20 years, it's going to be for 30 years. They're going to make back their money. All we want as a citizen is to have good roads. All we want is to be able to access the same metro line in Dubai. All we want is to be able to access the same Eurostar that will take you from Paris, that will take you from Paris to Amsterdam.
Okay.
And all you pay is about €120 or €100.
Okay.
For those that can afford it, they will take it. For those that can't afford it, they'll take the regular road. You will see a lot of the congestion. If you calculate what we spend, in terms of time, in terms of financials, in terms of money and all that, transporting ourselves within Nigeria, we will even match up with what you spend if you travel outside, anytime you travel outside Nigeria.
Okay, let's look at the rail system. For instance, you talk about what do you think we are at the same time, at this moment? How would you describe the rail system, or will I say in general, the transportation system in Nigeria now? How do you think the government can make money with partnership with the private sector?
Thank you. It's, they can actually take a leap from the BRT model.
Okay.
I understand the government has minimal investment in the BRT scheme. It's in partnership with EcoBank. I think the takeoff was in partnership with EcoBank and then the NURTW's association. And also they've now given franchise to some private, companies on red buses too. Same can be deployed. We just need to clean up Nigeria. We just need to clean up all these yellow buses around. They are outdated buses. Anytime you travel to Dubai and a 2015 car takes you all around, you wonder, are these guys human and we are animals, or what exactly is going on? The same 2015 model, Toyota Yaris or Toyota Camry or Mercedes, a G-Wagon drives you around. You won't pay more than 11 dirhams or 10 dirhams for whatever location you're going to. So, and these guys tells you the moment another version of that car is out, they replace it for you. So, we don't seem to really understand how to go about this. Government need no dime to be involved. There are people with liquid cash that can invest in these sectors, from transportation to railroads to maritime. Talk about it. There are people. There are investors all over. However, there is a big problem. The problem of corruption. Corruption in the sense that there's a way we deal with ourselves internally. There's a way the international investors have seen us dealt with Wale Babalakin, for instance. There's a way they've seen us dealt with some of their colleagues that have come into Nigeria, some of their business communities that have done business with us, and how bad we've treated them in terms of swindling them, in terms of, coming up with some very funny clauses in the middle of the transaction. And we go back to these guys to say, come and invest in us. And they look at you as, Oga, we knew what Andrew went through. We knew what even your own, citizen went through. We knew what this person went through. So it's almost difficult to do with the government.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the private sector. And maybe we should just rest a little bit from the government angle. Where do you think is the place of the private sector in this, even if the government was dormant or probably not sensitive to all of these you have said? Where is the place of the private sector in terms of creating awareness and taking some of this initiative to the government?
This is the problem in terms of the private sector. There's a huge liquidity problem.
Okay.
Talk about banking, talk about insurance, talk about health maintenance organizations, talk about stock brokerage, talk about road chain license. There's a lot of liquidity problem. And this liquidity problem is only traced to self-ownership. A lot of people want to own. A lot of people don't believe in consolidation. They don't just believe what they can only own is a part of the investment. They can't own everything. And that was why sometimes in Nigeria you had about over 100 or 200 banks. There were family banks. A lot of families want to own. And we do it in such a very sentimental manner that my kinsman just need to be the CBN governor. My kinsman just need to be the National Commissioner of Insurance at NICOM in Abuja. And then I get my approval. I get my license. And that's how business has been done in Nigeria. We can't move forward in any of those things. The only way is we need to understand. Let me give you another perfect example.
Okay.
In 2006, there were 150 HMOs, health insurance companies, in the whole of Netherlands.
All right.
By market forces, they collapsed when we visited the Dutch Health Ministry in 2014 October. They had collapsed to about 9. That can't happen in Nigeria. You hear people screaming about how you have taken their companies from them. You hear people talk about how this and that has happened, how it is targeted at the Igbos, how it is targeted at the Yorubas. I even hear very funny comment that the banks are concentrated in the hands of the Igbos, that the insurance are concentrated in the hands of the Yorubas. We can't go forward. And that the Burundi change is concentrated in the hands of the Hausas. That can't lead us anywhere for kind of
Okay,
life.
your company is into merger and acquisition.
Yeah.
What will your advice be in terms of merger or merging and taking over companies in order to create a very robust and stronger institutions to take some initiatives, even though the government is not doing anything about it?
It's just simple. Nobody wants to lose their company. We at Forbes Integrated, have played practically in the area of merging and acquiring companies, bringing them together, especially when there are announcements of recapitalizations. We've participated in the insurance sector. We've participated in the health maintenance organization sectors. We've actually done a lot in the area of health insurance companies in Nigeria, because the regulator came up to say the minimum capital base for health insurance companies in Nigeria is 400 million naira.
All right.
And this was a sector that was dominated by doctors who were not liquid, who were also not businessmen, so to speak. They are professionals, some professionals in their field. They're the ones that have kept every one of us alive. But of course, we're talking about business here. So what we did for a lot of them that really didn't have, the car, was to get investors for them. To say, hey guys, this is an opportunity. Let me give you an example of the health maintenance organization in Nigeria. We have about 170 to 180 million Nigerians. The scheme started sometimes in 2005, and this is 2015, like 10 years later. The scheme has only been able to register, both private and public, less than 7 million enrollees.
All right.
So there's a lot of docility in the system in that regard. So what we did was to say, okay, you know what? You guys can't be living on premiums. Because let's say, for instance, Core TV enrolls all their staff, for instance, on any HMO, for instance, and then the HMO will have to live on the premium paid by Core TV to pay your hospital bills when you go to hospital, and at the same time pay their staff, wear their cars, pay their rent and all that. At the end of the day, they won't be able to pay those hospitals. So the regulator has said, aside from collecting premiums from the likes of Core TV and every other person, you need to inject 400 million naira into this business. So what we do is to actually bring them together. And beyond that, we're also looking at the insurance sector, where there is a lot of issue at the moment.
But are there been challenges in bringing some of these businesses together?
A lot of challenges. A couple of them would not talk to you until their licenses are withdrawn. I've had cases, I've had negotiations up to 2 days ago in Abuja.
So sometimes merger and acquisition in Nigeria are you saying that we have still not gotten to where we're supposed to be?
Well, of course, we've not gotten there. Let me give you another example. Another example is the airline.
Okay.
I won't mention any names, but it's very clear to everybody that when some airlines get consistent cancellations or some consistent demands they can't meet up to, you need a merger.
How much can merger and acquisition bring to the table of each partners? If probably some of the partners might be scared that, okay, this business, I guess I may not get to how much I should get. That should come to me if I'm the only one in this business. But probably that's the issue of a share ratio also could be a major problem issue. So how much, in terms of benefit, comes to each of these?
Okay, thank you. Let me share the Apple story with you, which is what I tell all of them. Apple today is valued at over 700 billion US dollars. If I'm not mistaken, about 702 billion US dollars.
Okay.
Even though some few days ago, Apple was said to be undervalued. The entire Nigerian economy is 509 billion US dollars. Apple today is the biggest company in the world, and is by far bigger than the Nigerian economy as a whole combined of 170 million Nigerians. So if there were a consortium of people that could put together a company called Apple Incorporated, and then you own a fraction of Apple, and then we have Nigerian companies that are not as big as, that are part of the entire 509 billion economy, struggling with personal ownership, family companies.
All right.
We're not going to build an Apple. We will never get there. It's just straightforward. We need to open it up. We need to be clear. There needs to be capital base for each sector. If you don't have it, it doesn't mean you can't be part of it. Let me give you another perfect example. There was a time I was part of a group that did some private placement for MTN in Nigeria. We were hawking MTN shares on a private placement for $27 to buy one single MTN shares.
Okay.
Now, as at 2014, MTN Nigeria paid the federal government 150 billion naira in tax.
Okay.
The Nigerian National Assembly of 469 members has a total budget of 150 billion naira. If MTN Nigeria can pay the entire people in the National Assembly, then what are we talking about? It's just straightforward. One person does not own MTN. A consortium of investors own MTN.
So what you're saying is that it is a big business to go into merger and acquisition.
Oh yeah, because at the time MTN realized for us to harness our potential, we needed more investors.
Now, let also, before we take a break now, just quickly answer this question. Nigeria is one of the most expensive places to do business, but yet we are the toast of the investors of the world in terms of where they want to put their money. Why do you think it's so?
Well, if you go by the rebased economy, where we become the largest economy in Africa, that tells you if the Nigeria you live in, if the Nigeria you've worked in, if the Nigeria you were born all these years is the biggest economy in Africa, then nothing is happening in Africa. Then the rest of Africa must be sleeping. If as docile as we are, if as backward as we are, if as stagnant as we are also the biggest, then nothing is happening in the rest of the world. The whole of Ghana is $39 billion US. The whole of the economy of Ghana is $39 billion US. Nigeria is $509 billion US. Can you see the margin?
Interesting. So what you're saying is that that's exactly what is attracting some people, investors to come into Nigeria.
South Africa is 402 or thereabout.
All right.
It's not the whole of South Africa is as if the valuation of ExxonMobil today and Microsoft. ExxonMobil and Microsoft are struggling for the second and the third biggest company in the world, while Apple is 702. Mobil is around 410. Microsoft is around 412 or thereabout.
All right.
South Africa is around 400 and something as well. So if a whole economy in Africa is the valuation of a single company in the United States, then we're sleeping.
Well, Davies, we have to take a break at this point. This is Business and Economy. We'll take a break now. We'll be back shortly to discuss more. Please don't go away. Thank you for joining us. It's still Business and Economy. Yeah, Samson Davies is the Forbes Integrated Company Limited is still here with me. Let's quickly take a look at this just before we go. Yeah. How would you advise the incoming government, based on the analysis you gave earlier before we went to break, that the Nigerian economy is about 509 billion US dollars, yeah. And of course investors are still much interested in the economy of Nigeria. How would you advise the incoming government to take advantage of this?
Thank you. I believe we can be bigger than Apple as a country. It's quite sad that we're going to be measured with a company, but let's at least attain that maybe in the next 2 or 3 years of the Buhari administration. My advice for the government is this, we keep going to foreign investors to talk about how we want them to invest in Nigeria. And these guys look at us as, are we jokers? The government needs to build a lot of confidence in foreign investors in the area of sanity in the system. The government needs to clean up the system entirely. We have too many companies in Nigeria struggling for presence, talking about investment, talking about this.
Are you saying those small companies should be closed down?
No.
Okay.
The government needs to create some sanity.
Okay.
You want to play in the Bureau de change market, right? Okay. This is what you must have. He doesn't care who has the money. Let the Igbos, Yorubas, all the tribes, let them come together to fund it. We shouldn't be talking about, oh no, let's bring it as low as possible. We need sanity. Let me give you a perfect example of why most insurance companies can't pay claims, especially to aviation. What's the value of a plane? What's the capital base of an insurance company? The general insurance company's capital base is 3 billion. The life assurance companies are 2 billion. What's the value of a plane? If there are no consortium of insurance companies to underwrite a single aviation company, how would they pay the claim when it happens? So there may be need for some sanity. There are two major fears before the foreign investors. There's the fear of corruption, and then there's the fear of government stability in terms of the direction of the government. The government needs to come very clear. Do we want to operate like the Dubai government that is deeply involved in business, or do we want to create a PP partnership and then give a kind of a consulting, maybe some kinds of concessions like tax reliefs, like very credible. We also need to bring in the credible people in Nigeria to be part of this administration. We need to bring up people that are part of government. You understand? No, sorry, they were not part of government.
Okay.
People that have been successful in Nigeria as a business people. You know, that already has ties with Volkswagen, already has ties with JP Morgan and Co, already has ties with Goldman Sachs, not politicians. We need to bring in people that have already been talking to these guys, that have done business with the McKinseys.
That can win the investors' confidence.
Oh, easily. Because you have the Tony Elumelus all over the place talking to different investors. You have the Umovia, you have the... I don't want to market anybody, but you have a couple of them around. We need to make them interested in government. We need to bring them in such a way that they will be part of the government. Maybe not as a minister, but maybe in some other, advisory roles, or in some ways that they are part of it. In that way, those guys will be able to bring into Nigeria
all right.
the chain of investors at their disposal, the chain of contacts at their disposal, and then we can build Nigeria. We can't continue with the way we are.
So in summary and in one statement, what you're saying is that the incoming government needs to create a clear, perfect direction.
Perfect direction.
Interesting.
Devoid of politicians, devoid of intrigues, devoid of tribes, devoid of whomsoever.
Well, thank you very much. I want to thank you, Samson Davies, for coming on Business and Economy this morning. Samson Davies is the MD CEO of Forbes Integrated Company Limited. Well, let's move away from there now. Quickly take a look at the world market headlines here before we go. Oil holds on to recent gains as West Texas trades above $60 a barrel. So oil crude futures softened marginally in Asian trade Friday, but retained the bulk of strong overnight gains that helped push U.S. oil prices over the $60 a barrel mark. And the question is OPEC bothered about the new price of oil rising faster than you can expect? Let's move away and go to South Africa right now. The South Africa may probably or may cut its estimate for the production of corn production in 2015 by 0.6% after a drought earlier this year damaged crops in the continent's largest grower of the grain, a survey shows. So local farmers may rate about 9.7 million metric tons this season, according to the median of 6 analysts estimate at the Bloomberg survey. Let's move away quickly from that and take a look at the America rent crisis surging faster than home price in that place. Rents in April in American soil rose at the fastest pace in 2013, outpacing home values by 4% year-on-year to $1,364 last month, while home values rose by 3% to a median price of $178,400. So if you need to rent a house or a home in America, you need to get prepared because the prices are rising faster than you can expect. Well, China getting worried about US-led Pacific trade deal. The report says that the trade deal may be controversial in the US, but in China, it appears to be the object of great worry and in some respects seems to be driving policy in Beijing. And they say that President Barack Obama will create the world's largest free trade zone, stretching across half of the globe. Interesting. Half of the globe? Half a billion people will be involved in that trade, a free trade zone. Well, China is already getting jittery that the US is leading such a trade, which might take the market from there. Well, this is where we call it a day on Business and Economy. Many thanks for watching. You can also join us for conversation as the conversation continues after the show at Bees Economy, talking about Twitter handle and our Facebook at Bees Economy. Many thanks for watching. I am Frank OMALAPEH. Have a wonderful weekend.